Officer Jennifer Walsh's fist connects with the black man's jaw before she even processes what she's doing. The sound echoes through the empty parking lot off Route 42 in Millbrook County. Blood trickles from his lip as he steadies himself against his Mercedes hands still raised. He doesn't fight back, doesn't curse. Just looks at her with something worse than anger. Recognition mixed with profound disappointment. 3 days from now, she'll walk into the internal affairs briefing room and see this same face, but everything starts here with her rage and his silence. 15 minutes earlier, Jennifer had been driving down Route 42 with her jaw clenched so tight her teeth ached. The morning briefing still burned in her mind like acid. Captain Morrison had announced the new detective position, the one she'd worked toward for 3 years, the one that would finally prove she belonged in this department. He'd given it to Rodriguez. Maria Rodriguez, who'd been on the force 2 years less than Jennifer, who didn't have half her arrest record, who smiled too much, and talked about community policing like it was some kind of magic solution. Jennifer's hands had gripped the steering wheel until her knuckles went white. She'd filed the applications, passed the exams, done everything by the book. But somehow it was never enough. Her request for overtime got denied last month. Her suggestion to change patrol routes got ignored at the district meeting. And now this. The detective shield going to someone else while she stayed in uniform, still proving herself at 38 years old, still fighting for respect she'd earned 100 times over. The black Mercedes caught her attention because it didn't belong on this stretch of road at 3 in the afternoon on a Tuesday. Temporary tags in the back window dealer frame still on the license plate. The left tail light had a crack running through it, barely visible, but enough. Jennifer hit her lights, and the Mercedes pulled over immediately. No hesitation, no attempt to run. That should have told her something, but she wasn't thinking clearly. She was thinking about Rodriguez getting her promotion. She was thinking about her mortgage payment coming due, and her daughter needing braces, and her husband Mark saying maybe she should consider another line of work if this one made her so miserable. When the driver's window rolled down, and she saw the man behind the wheel, something in her chest tightened. He was well-dressed, expensive watch, catching the sunlight cologne that probably cost more than her weekly paycheck. The Mercedes was spotless inside leather seats that looked factory new. And he was black. The combination hit all her triggers at once. She leaned down to the window, her voice already sharp. License and registration. Now. The man Marcus Bennett, though she didn't know his name, yet reached slowly toward his glove compartment. His movements were careful, deliberate hands visible at all times. He'd done this before, knew the dance. "Here you go, officer. Is there a problem?" His voice was calm, professional, with an educated accent that made Jennifer's resentment spike higher. "There's a problem with your taillight. Cracked. That's a safety violation." Marcus glanced in his rearview mirror, nodded slightly. "I wasn't aware. I just picked up the car yesterday. Thank you for letting me know. I'll get it fixed today." His reasonableness only made it worse. Jennifer examined his license, looking for anything wrong. Marcus Eugene Bennett, age 51, address listed as an apartment complex on the east side. Temporary registration showed the car was purchased 2 days ago from a dealership in the city. Everything was in order, which frustrated her more. "Step out of the vehicle, sir." Marcus's expression shifted, slightly, confusion crossing his features. "Is that necessary for a taillight violation?" "I said step out of the vehicle." Jennifer's hand moved to her belt, resting near her weapon. It was a gesture she'd perfected over 14 years, one that usually ensured immediate compliance. Marcus opened his door slowly and stood, hands visible, posture non-threatening. He was tall, maybe 6 feet 2 inches, broad-shouldered, but not bulky. He wore a tailored navy suit with a white shirt, no tie. He looked like a lawyer or a businessman, someone successful. Someone who had things Jennifer wanted and couldn't seem to get. How can you afford a car like this? The question came out before she could stop it. Excuse me? Marcus's tone remained even, but his eyes sharpened. What's your occupation, sir? Where do you work? I don't see how that's relevant to a traffic stop. Jennifer circled around him, looking through the car windows. I smell marijuana. I'm going to need to search your vehicle. There's no marijuana in my car, officer. I don't use drugs. I'm going to need you to consent to a search. I do not consent. You don't consent. Marcus met her eyes directly. No, ma'am. I know my rights. I do not consent to a search of my vehicle. You're parked on a public road driving an expensive car with temporary tags, and you're getting defensive when I ask simple questions. That gives me reasonable suspicion. Officer, I've been nothing but cooperative. I've provided my license and registration. I've answered your questions. But I do not consent to a search, and unless you have probable cause, I'm within my rights to refuse. People like you always know your rights, don't you? Jennifer's voice dripped with contempt. People like me? Yes. People who think they can buy their way out of anything. People who think rules don't apply to them. People who drive around in cars they probably stole or bought with drug money and then cry discrimination when they get pulled over. Marcus's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed controlled. I'm going to need your badge number. I want to file a complaint. Jennifer laughed, harsh and bitter. A complaint? For what? For doing my job? For keeping this community safe from people who don't belong here? My badge number is 7429. Officer Jennifer Walsh. Write it down. Better yet, let me help you. She pulled out her citation book and started writing her pen, pressing hard enough to tear through the paper. Marcus reached into his jacket, moving slowly toward his phone. I'm going to record this interaction. Jennifer's hand flew to her weapon. Don't move. Get your hands where I can see them. I'm just getting my phone. It's my right to record. Get your hands up. Now Marcus raised both hands immediately, the phone visible in his right palm. Jennifer's heart hammered in her chest. Training said one thing, but rage said another. She saw Rodriguez getting her promotion. She saw Mark's disappointed face across the dinner table. She saw 14 years of her life spent in a uniform while people like this man drove Mercedes and wore expensive suits and talked about their rights like they were the wronged party. Her fist connected with his jaw before rational thought could intervene. The sound echoed through the empty parking lot off Route 42 in Millbrook County, and blood trickled from his lip as he steadied himself against his Mercedes' hand still raised phone dropping to the pavement. Marcus staggered backward but didn't fall, didn't raise his hands in defense, didn't do anything, but touch his lip and look at the blood on his fingers. Jennifer's training kicked in. Then the part that knew she'd crossed a line, but her pride was a living thing now, louder than reason. She grabbed his shoulder and spun him around, slamming him against the car. Get on the ground. On the ground now, Marcus complied, moving carefully to his knees, and then prone on the asphalt. His expensive suit was getting dirty gravel pressing into the fabric. Jennifer pulled her handcuffs from her belt and wrenched his arms behind his back, tightening the cuffs harder than necessary. She felt his body tense, but he didn't resist, didn't speak, just breathed steadily through his nose. The silence from him was worse than if he'd shouted or cursed. It made her feel like he was judging her, finding her wanting, and that made her angrier. A car slowed on the road, an older sedan with a woman behind the wheel. The driver pulled onto the shoulder about 30 feet away, and Jennifer saw the phone come up pointed at them. Great. Just perfect. She stood and walked toward the car, one hand on her belt. Move along. This is official police business. The woman, white-haired and stern-faced, didn't lower her phone. I'm witnessing this interaction. That's my right. Ma'am, you need to leave the scene. You're interfering with an arrest. I'm on a public road and I'm not interfering with anything. I'm observing and recording. Jennifer's face flushed hot. I'm ordering you to leave or I'll arrest you for obstruction. The woman's expression didn't change. My name is Helen Rodriguez. I'm a retired federal judge. I know the law, officer, and I'm not obstructing anything. I'm a witness. And I'm staying right here? Jennifer wanted to scream. Instead, she pulled her radio from her belt and called for backup, her voice tight. This is Unit 7429. I need backup at Route 42 mile marker 18. I have one suspect in custody and a civilian who's refusing to comply with orders to leave the scene. The dispatcher's voice crackled back. Copy that 7429. Units responding. Jennifer walked back to Marcus, who remained on the ground exactly as she'd left him. His cheek was pressed against the asphalt, and blood had dried on his lip, but he wasn't struggling or complaining. She grabbed his shoulder. Get up. Marcus rose carefully, hands still cuffed behind his back. Jennifer guided him toward her patrol car with more force than necessary. 2 vehicles arrived within minutes. Officer Mike Chen pulled up first in his patrol car, stepping out with his usual careful expression. He'd been on the force 6 years, always thorough, always by the book. He looked at Marcus, at his bloody lip, an expensive suit, at Jennifer's rigid posture, and his face showed uncertainty. Walsh, what's the situation? Suspect became violent during a routine traffic stop. Attempted to assault me. I had to subdue him. Chen's eyes moved to Marcus's face, to his calm expression and lack of defensive wounds. Did he strike you? He reached into his jacket in a threatening manner. I feared for my safety. The second vehicle arrived, and Jennifer felt relief flood through her. Detective Derek Thompson, her partner for the last 8 years. Her friend, the one person in the department she trusted completely. Thompson was 42, built like a linebacker, with a reputation for backing his fellow officers no matter what. He climbed out of his unmarked car and assessed the scene quickly. Talk to me, Walsh. Subject was combative, refused to comply with lawful orders, reached for something in his jacket. I had to use force to control the situation. Thompson nodded, not questioning, not doubting. His loyalty was absolute, and Jennifer had counted on that. Chen still looked uncomfortable. Did anyone else witness the initial contact, the witness over there? Jennifer gestured toward Helen Rodriguez's sedan. She pulled up after the fact. Didn't see anything relevant. Chen walked toward Helen while Thompson approached Marcus. You got anything to say? Marcus looked at Thompson, then at Jennifer, then back to Thompson. His voice was quiet but clear. Officer Walsh, badge number 7429. You've just made the biggest mistake of your career. Jennifer stepped closer, her face inches from his. Is that a threat? You threatening a police officer because I can add that to the charges? No threat. Just a fact you'll understand very soon. Thompson put a hand on Jennifer's shoulder, pulling her back. Let's get him processed and off the street. You can write up the report at the station. Chen returned from speaking with Helen, his expression troubled. The witness says she has video of the encounter. Says it contradicts Officer Walsh's account. Jennifer's stomach dropped, but she kept her face neutral. She pulled up after everything happened. She doesn't know what she saw. The witness says she saw you strike the suspect while he was compliant. That's a lie. She's trying to protect him. Why would she do that? People always take their side. You know that, Chen. Chen didn't respond, but he didn't look convinced. They loaded Marcus into the back of Jennifer's patrol car, and as Thompson closed the door, something fell from Marcus's pocket onto the ground. Chen picked it up before Jennifer could react. It was the temporary registration for the Mercedes, and on it was an address that made Jennifer's blood run cold. Millbrook County Government Complex, Internal Affairs Division, 5th floor. Thompson saw it too, and his eyes went wide. He looked at Jennifer, questions forming, but she shook her head sharply. Chen handed the paper to Jennifer without a word. She folded it and put it in her pocket, her hands shaking slightly. Helen Rodriguez was still in her car phone, still recording. Jennifer walked over one more time. You need to delete that video. It's evidence in an ongoing investigation. Judge Rodriguez smiled thinly. This video will be available to anyone who needs it through proper legal channels. Have a good day, officer. She drove away and Jennifer stood on the shoulder of Route 42, watching her taillights disappear, feeling the temporary registration burning in her pocket like a brand. The Millbrook County Police Station smelled like coffee and floor cleaner and fear. Jennifer's fear specifically, though she hid it behind a mask of professional efficiency. She processed Marcus through booking with hands that wanted to shake, but didn't her voice steady, even as her mind raced? Marcus remained silent through fingerprinting, through the photographing, through the property inventory. He made no phone call, requested no attorney, just sat in the holding cell with that same calm expression that made Jennifer want to scream. She retreated to her desk in the squad room and pulled up the database, typing in Marcus Eugene Bennett with fingers that finally trembled. The screen loaded and then stopped displaying a single line: access restricted. High-level security clearance required. Jennifer stared at the words. In 14 years on the force, she'd never seen that designation for a civilian. Judges sometimes had it, federal agents, witnesses in protection. But not regular people pulled over for traffic violations. Thompson appeared at her elbow, his voice low. "We need to talk. Not here." They went to the parking lot, standing between vehicles where no one could overhear. Thompson's face was tight with worry. "IA, are you kidding me? He's nobody. Just some guy with a government job. That address could be anything." "That address is Internal Affairs Headquarters. 5th floor is Executive Offices. And his file is restricted, Jennifer. What did you do? I did my job. I stopped a suspicious vehicle, and the driver became combative. That's the story. That's what happened." Thompson ran his hand over his face. "I saw him Walsh. He didn't look combative. He looked like someone who got beat up. And that witness has video. We don't know what's on that video. Could be anything. Could be nothing useful." "Jennifer, I've covered for you before. The Taurus stop last year. The incident with the kid in the park. But this feels different. Because he works for the county. That makes him special. Because if he really is IA, if he really is someone important, this isn't going to blow over. This is going to be a thing. So we make sure our stories match. We make sure there's no gaps, no questions. You were there. You saw him reach into his jacket. You saw me defend myself." Thompson hesitated, and in that hesitation, Jennifer saw their 8-year partnership fracturing. "Derek, I need you. We're partners. We back each other. That's how this works. I know, but no buts. How many times have I covered for you? That DUI stop where you let the councilman's son go. The evidence room discrepancy that would have cost you your job. I've been there for you every single time. Now I need you to be there for me." Thompson's jaw worked, and finally he nodded. "Okay. Okay, we stick together. What's the story?" He was aggressive, refused to comply. Reached into his jacket in a threatening manner. "You feared for your safety and had to use force. I arrived on scene and confirmed your account. And the witness unreliable. Didn't see the initial contact? Biased." They returned to the station, and Jennifer sat down to write her report, choosing each word, like a lawyer, building a narrative that would withstand scrutiny. Subject was operating a vehicle with a cracked taillight on Route 42 at approximately 1500 hours. Traffic stop was initiated. Subject displayed signs of agitation and refused to comply with verbal commands. When asked to exit, the vehicle, subject became argumentative and confrontational. Subject reached into his jacket in a sudden movement that suggested access to a weapon. Officer felt threatened and employed necessary force to control the situation and ensure officer safety. Subject was subdued and taken into custody without further incident. She read it 3 times, looking for holes, finding none. It was clean, professional, defensible. Sergeant Martinez appeared at her desk, his expression unreadable. Martinez was 55, Mexican-American with 30 years on the force and eyes that missed nothing. He'd been her supervisor for 8 years, and their relationship was complicated. He thought she was too aggressive. She thought he was too soft. But they'd maintained a professional respect. "Walk me through the stop, Walsh." Jennifer repeated her story, word for word, from the report. Martinez listened without interrupting his face, giving nothing away. "And the dash cam malfunctioned. I've been having issues with it for a week. Put in a maintenance request last Tuesday." Martinez made a note. "And you were patrolling Route 42 because following up on reports of suspicious activity in that area. Drug deals, possible stolen vehicles." "It's in my patrol log from last week." Martinez nodded slowly, and Officer Thompson arrived on scene when approximately 5 minutes after I called for backup. He observed the suspect in custody and the witness vehicle leaving the scene. What did the witness say? Claimed she saw something that contradicted my account. But she wasn't there for the initial contact. Didn't see the subject reach for his jacket or become aggressive. She just saw the aftermath and made assumptions. Martinez tapped his pen against his notepad, and Officer Chen arrived first. "Can confirm the basic facts. Subject was in custody. Witness was present." Martinez studied her for a long moment, and Jennifer kept her face neutral, professional. Just another day on the job. "Go home, Walsh. I'll handle the processing from here." "But the report is done. You filed it. Now go home. Get some rest. We'll sort this out tomorrow." Jennifer wanted to argue, but Martinez's tone left no room. She gathered her things, caught Thompson's eye across the squad room. He gave her a small nod. She left through the back exit, avoiding the main lobby, and climbed into her personal car with hands that finally shook freely. The drive home took 20 minutes but felt like hours. She kept seeing Marcus's face, that look of disappointment mixed with recognition. Kept seeing that temporary registration with the internal affairs address. Kept imagining Monday morning walking into some meeting and seeing him there. Her phone buzzed. A text from Thompson just past the bulletin board. "New Deputy Superintendent of IA starts Monday. Marcus Eugene Bennett. Photo attached." Jennifer pulled over on the side of the road and opened the attachment. It was him. Same face, same calm expression, wearing a suit and standing in front of an American flag. The caption read, "Deputy Superintendent Marcus Bennett brings 28 years of law enforcement experience and a distinguished record with the FBI's Civil Rights Division to lead internal affairs reform efforts in Millbrook County." Jennifer sat in her car on the side of the road and finally let herself understand the full scope of what she'd done. Saturday morning arrived with rain that matched Jennifer's mood. She hadn't slept, couldn't eat, spent the night staring at her phone and researching Marcus Eugene Bennett until her eyes burned. The information she found made everything worse. Marcus had started his career with the Philadelphia Police Department in the late 90s. Made detective by 29, moved to the FBI at 32. His specialty was civil rights violations, police misconduct, excessive force cases. He testified against officers in a dozen high-profile cases, secured convictions, ended careers. He'd been brought to Millbrook County specifically because the Department of Justice had opened an investigation into the police department 6 months ago. Pattern and practice? Investigation, the news articles called it, looking at systemic issues, discrimination, use of force, accountability. And Jennifer had punched him in the face. Mark found her at the kitchen table at 6 a.m, laptop, open, coffee cold in her mug. He was already dressed for his Saturday golf game, keys in hand. "You coming to bed at all?" Jennifer didn't look up. "Can't sleep." He moved closer, saw Marcus's official photo. "What's this about work stuff?" Mark had learned over their 16 years of marriage not to push too hard when Jennifer got like this. He kissed the top of her head. "Try to get some rest. I'll be back this afternoon." She nodded but didn't respond, already scrolling through another article. This one detailed a case in Baltimore where Marcus had investigated 3 officers for the beating of a black teenager. The investigation took 2 years but ended with federal charges, prison time, and a complete overhaul of the department's training protocols. The article included quotes from Marcus. "Police officers have tremendous power, and with that power comes tremendous responsibility. When officers abuse that power, when they use their authority to harm rather than protect, they betray not just their victims, but every officer who does the job with honor and integrity. My goal isn't to punish police. My goal is to ensure that the police serve all communities with equal respect and equal justice." Jennifer's phone rang. "Thompson." She answered immediately. "Tell me you found something." "I found a lot, and none of it is good." He's not just IA Jennifer. He's a legend. FBI career that's basically untouchable. Commendations from 3 different attorney generals. He's the guy they bring in when departments are so corrupt that nothing else works. The Millbrook County Board brought him in to clean house. Thompson's voice cracked slightly. "We're so screwed. We need to come clean. We can't. If we admit we lied on the report, we're done, both of us. Careers over criminal charges, everything. We're already done. The only question is how bad it gets." Thompson listened to me. It's his word against ours. He was alone. The witness didn't see the initial contact. We have no dash cam. It's a he said, she said situation, and you think he's going to let that slide? You think Marcus Bennett, the guy who took down entire police departments, is going to just let this go? He has to prove it, and he can't. Not unless one of us breaks. So we don't break. Silence stretched between them. Finally, Thompson spoke. "I have a wife, Jennifer. 2 kids. I can't lose this job. You won't. We stick together, we get through this. I'll call you tomorrow." Jennifer ended the call and returned to her research. She found Marcus's educational background. Bachelor's degree in criminal justice from Temple University. Master's in public administration from John Jay. He'd published articles in law enforcement journals about racial bias in policing. He'd taught at the FBI Academy. He'd been married, once divorced one daughter, who was a civil rights attorney in New York. He was exactly the kind of person Jennifer had spent her career resenting. Educated, successful, articulate. The kind of person who talked about systemic issues and implicit bias and reform like those words meant something like they weren't just excuses for criminals to escape consequences. Sunday was worse. Jennifer tried to go about her normal routine. Laundry, grocery shopping, dinner with Mark and their 2 kids. But everything felt like acting like she was moving through someone else's life. Her daughter Emma, 16 and sharp-eyed, noticed. "Mom, you okay? You seem weird." "Just tired, honey. Work's been stressful." Emma exchanged a look with her younger brother Tyler. They'd learned to read their mother's moods. When she was stressed about work, the whole house felt it. Mark tried to draw her out at dinner. "The department's still giving you grief about that promotion." Something like that. "You know you don't have to stay there. You could apply to other departments. Private security pays better anyway. I'm not quitting." "I didn't say quit. I said, consider options." Jennifer's fork clattered against her plate harder than she intended. "I spent 14 years building my career. I'm not throwing that away because things get difficult sometimes." Mark raised his hands in surrender. "Okay, just trying to help." After dinner, Jennifer locked herself in the bathroom and pulled up her email on her phone. She drafted a message to the union representative Frank Donaldson. "Frank, I need advice on a situation. Officer-involved incident that might be under review. Need to understand my rights and options. Can we meet?" She hesitated, finger over the send button. Reaching out to the union meant admitting there was a problem, but not reaching out meant facing whatever came next alone. She sent it. Donaldson replied within an hour. Monday morning, 8 a.m. Don't discuss the incident with anyone else until we talk. Sunday night, Jennifer lay in bed next to Mark, listening to him breathe steadily in sleep, and checked her phone for the 100th time. No messages from the department, no official notifications. Maybe it would be okay. Maybe Marcus had decided to let it go. Focus on bigger issues, not waste time on one officer who'd made a mistake. At 11:57 p.m., her phone lit up with a text from an unknown number. Officer Walsh, my office, Monday 9 a.m. sharp. Deputy Superintendent Bennett. Jennifer sat up so fast Mark stirred beside her. She read the message 3 times, her heart hammering. She typed and deleted half a dozen responses before settling on a simple reply. Received. Will be there. 3 dots appeared immediately showing he was typing. Then they disappeared. No response came. Jennifer spent the rest of the night staring at the ceiling, watching the hours count down to Monday morning. At 5 a.m., she got up and showered, dressed in her uniform with shaking hands. She arrived at the station at 7:30, hoping to talk to Donaldson before the IA meeting. But when she checked her email, there was a new message from Sergeant Martinez. Officer Walsh, you've been placed on administrative leave, effective immediately pending investigation into the incident on Route 42. Please report to my office to surrender your badge and service weapon. You are not to enter the building except for official meetings and interviews. You will be notified of your IA appointment separately. Jennifer read the email twice, feeling the ground disappear beneath her feet. Administrative leave. Everyone would know. Everyone would see. She was radioactive now marked. Her phone rang. Thompson. I just got the same email. We're both on leave. Oh God, Jennifer. What are we going to do? Meet me at Donaldson's office. 8 a.m. Don't talk to anyone else. She ended the call and sat in her car in the parking lot watching other officers arrive for shift change, seeing them glance at her car and look away quickly. The gossip had already started. Everyone knew. At 8 sharp, she walked into Frank Donaldson's office in the Union building across the street from the station. Thompson was already there, looking like he'd aged 5 years overnight. Donaldson was 60, white-haired, with the face of someone who'd seen every kind of police scandal and weathered them all. He gestured for Jennifer to sit. Tell me everything. Don't leave anything out. And don't lie to me. I can't help you if I don't know what really happened. Jennifer told the story she'd written in her report. Donaldson listened without expression. When she finished, he turned to Thompson. Same story. Yes, sir. Donaldson leaned back in his chair. And the truth. What that is the truth. Officer Walsh. I've been a union rep for 22 years. I've represented cops in shootings, corruption cases, everything you can imagine. I know when someone's telling me what happened and when they're telling me what they wish happened. So I'm going to ask one more time, what really happened on that traffic stop? Jennifer and Thompson exchanged glances. Neither spoke. Donaldson sighed. Fine. Keep your story. But you should know that Marcus Bennett isn't some random IA investigator. He's the person they bring in when they want to burn a department down and rebuild from ashes. He has resources you can't imagine. And he has a reputation for being absolutely relentless when he thinks an officer has lied. The best advice I can give you is to come clean now, take your lumps, and hope for mercy. We're sticking with our statement, then God help you both. Because I don't think I can. Monday morning, 9 a.m. Jennifer walked into the Internal Affairs building in downtown Millbrook, a gray concrete structure that housed the county's oversight operations. She'd never been inside before. Regular officers avoided IA like plague. Being called here meant your career was on life support. The lobby was sterile. White walls, fluorescent lights, hard plastic chairs. A receptionist behind bulletproof glass checked her ID and directed her to the third floor. Thompson had his appointment at 10. They'd agreed not to speak before the interviews, not to be seen together, to keep everything separate. The elevator ride felt like descending into hell. Third floor, long hallway. Room 307. Jennifer knocked and a voice told her to enter. The interrogation room was small and cold. A table, 3 chairs, a camera in the corner with a red recording light. Marcus sat on the far side of the table with 2 other investigators. A woman in her 40s, black, severe expression. A man in his 30s, white, taking notes. Marcus's face was still visibly bruised. His lip had healed, but the discoloration remained. He wore a different suit today, charcoal gray, with a white shirt and blue tie. He looked like what he was, someone in authority. Someone who held Jennifer's future in his hands. Officer Jennifer Walsh, please sit. Marcus's voice was formal, professional, completely devoid of emotion. This is a formal administrative investigation into the events of last Friday, Route 42, approximately 1500 hours. This interview is being recorded. You have the right to union representation. Jennifer nodded toward the door. My representative is aware of this meeting. Very well. This is Investigator Sarah Chen and Investigator Robert Martinez. They'll be assisting with this investigation. Before we begin with questions, I need to read you your rights under the Garrity ruling. You are being ordered to cooperate with this administrative investigation. Your statements cannot be used against you in criminal proceedings, but your refusal to answer can result in disciplinary action up to and including termination. Do you understand? Yes. Marcus opened a folder on the table. I've reviewed your incident report from Friday. I'd like you to walk me through the events in your own words. Start from the beginning. Jennifer repeated her story for what felt like the 100th time. The traffic stop, the cracked tail light, Marcus's behavior, his refusal to comply, his sudden movement toward his jacket, her fear, her response. She kept her voice steady, her details consistent. When she finished, Marcus opened another folder. Officer Walsh, I'm going to show you some evidence, and I'd like your response. He slid a photograph across the table. It showed Marcus's face bruised and bloody, taken at the hospital. Does this look consistent with someone who reached for a weapon? He was aggressive. I had to control the situation. Marcus slid another photo across. This one showed the scene from a distance. Jennifer's patrol car, Marcus's Mercedes, and in the background, clearly visible, Helen Rodriguez's sedan. The timestamp showed 3:09 p.m., 6 minutes after Jennifer had initiated the stop. So this witness arrived 6 minutes into the encounter, not after everything was over as you claimed. Jennifer's throat tightened. I may have been mistaken about the exact timing. Things were happening fast. Marcus pulled out a tablet and turned it toward her. He pressed play. Video footage, filmed from Helen Rodriguez's car. The angle was slightly distant, but the audio was crystal clear. Jennifer heard her own voice, harsh and contemptuous. People like you always know your rights, don't you? Heard Marcus's calm response. Heard herself making comments about drug money and stolen cars. And then, clearly visible despite the distance, Jennifer's fist connecting with Marcus's face. The video continued. Showed Jennifer forcing Marcus to the ground. Showed him complying with every command. No resistance, no aggression, no reaching for weapons. Just compliance met with violence. Marcus paused the video. This was recorded by retired federal judge Helen Rodriguez. She's provided a sworn statement describing what she witnessed. Would you like to revise your account of events? Jennifer felt everything crumbling. I felt threatened. He reached for his phone. Marcus pulled out another piece of equipment. This is interesting. Did you know that many luxury vehicles now come with built-in dashcam systems? The Tesla and Mercedes systems are particularly sophisticated. The Mercedes I was driving had a dashcam. It recorded audio of our entire interaction. He pressed play on another recording. Jennifer's voice filled the room, every word she'd said, every racist comment, every threat, every lie about what was happening. And then Marcus's voice, calm and clear, Officer Walsh, badge number 7429. You've just made the biggest mistake of your career. Would you like to explain these recordings? Officer Walsh, Jennifer couldn't speak. Her mouth opened, but no words came. The evidence was overwhelming, undeniable, damning. Marcus leaned forward slightly. I haven't even gotten to the medical evidence yet, or the analysis of your patrol route showing you were 3 miles outside your assigned zone, or the maintenance records showing your dashcam was functioning perfectly and you manually disabled it before the stop, or your disciplinary history. 3 previous excessive force complaints, all dismissed. 2 lawsuits settled by the county, both involving black motorists, a pattern of problematic stops in affluent black neighborhoods. Jennifer, this isn't a he said, she said situation. This is a case with overwhelming evidence of misconduct. Now I'm going to give you one opportunity to revise your statement, to tell the truth, to take responsibility. Because if you continue to lie, if you continue to stand by a false report, the consequences will be significantly worse. Jennifer's mind raced. If she admitted lying, she was done. Career over. Criminal charges. Prison, maybe. But if she stuck to her story, if she maintained her account. Marcus seemed to read her thoughts. I should also mention that Officer Thompson is being interviewed in the next room right now. By the end of today, I'll have both of your statements. And I'll know if you coordinated your stories. Jennifer made her decision the wrong one, driven by pride and fear. My statement stands. I felt threatened. I used appropriate force. Subject was combative. Everything in my report is accurate. Marcus closed his folders slowly. Very well. This interview is concluded. You'll be notified of our findings and any subsequent actions. You're still on administrative leave. Do not contact Officer Thompson. Do not discuss this case with anyone except your union representative. Do you understand? Yes. As Jennifer stood to leave, Marcus spoke one more time. Officer Walsh? I've been investigating police misconduct for 28 years. I've seen officers make mistakes. I've seen officers who were afraid or poorly trained, or who acted in good faith under difficult circumstances. I've recommended counseling, retraining, supervision. I've helped officers get better. But I've also seen officers who abuse their power, who target people based on race, who lie to cover their actions. Those officers I removed from law enforcement permanently. You had a chance today to be in the first category, you chose the second. Jennifer left the room and walked to the elevator on legs that barely held her. When she reached the parking lot, she saw Thompson leaning against his car, his face ashen. He saw her and shook his head, shook his. They didn't even have to speak. Investigator Chen approached Jennifer before she could reach her car. Officer Walsh, I need to inform you that you're being placed under arrest. She held up handcuffs and Jennifer felt the world tilt. What charges of assault, filing a false police report, and civil rights violations? You have the right to remain silent. As Chen read her Miranda rights, Jennifer saw faces in the IA building windows, watching, recording. Her career didn't just end. It exploded in spectacular fashion for everyone to see. The Millbrook County Jail smelled like industrial cleaner and desperation. Jennifer sat in an interview room, wearing an orange jumpsuit, no longer Officer Walsh, but inmate Walsh, no longer the person with authority, but the person subject to it. The arraignment had been humiliating. Standing before Judge Patricia Okonkwo, being read charges in open court, photographers in the back row, capturing every moment. The local news had run with it immediately. Cop arrested for assault on IA supervisor. Video shows racist attack. Police officer charged with civil rights violations. Her bail was set at $50,000. Mark posted it using their savings, his face tight with anger and betrayal. They barely spoke on the drive home. Thompson called that afternoon. He'd broken. Faced with the same evidence, he'd crumbled within an hour and told everything. The coordination of stories, the lies in the reports, Jennifer's history of problematic stops that he'd witnessed and never reported. In exchange for full cooperation, the county offered him suspension without termination and immunity from criminal prosecution. He'd still lose a year of pay and face permanent notation in his record, but he'd keep his pension and avoid prison. "I'm sorry, Jennifer. I couldn't do it. I couldn't lose everything. You promised we'd stick together, I know." But they had everything: video, audio, medical reports. It wasn't my word against his. It was my lies against documented evidence. And I have a family. Thompson's voice cracked. "I'm sorry. But I had to protect my family." Jennifer ended the call and threw her phone across the room. Over the next 2 weeks, her life disintegrated in slow motion. The story dominated local news. More damaging details emerged daily. Internal Affairs released a report summarizing Jennifer's 14-year career. 8 complaints of excessive force, 3 sustained. 15 complaints of racial profiling, 5 sustained. 2 federal lawsuits settled quietly by the county, both involving black men who alleged Jennifer planted evidence and used excessive force. James Crawford came forward first. He owned a chain of car washes, successful businessman, pillar of the community. 3 years ago, Jennifer had pulled him over for a broken taillight. She'd searched his car without consent, claimed she found a small bag of cocaine in the glove box. Crawford insisted it was planted. He hired an attorney, fought the charges, but eventually accepted a plea deal to avoid the risk of prison. The cocaine charge stayed on his record, cost him business opportunities, damaged his reputation. Now, with Jennifer's pattern exposed, he wanted justice. "I knew she put that cocaine there. I'd never touched drugs in my life. But who's going to believe a black man over a police officer? Now everyone can see what I've known all along. She's a criminal with a badge." Keisha Williams came forward next. She was 24 now, working as a nurse. But at 19, she'd been pulled over by Jennifer for allegedly running a stop sign. Jennifer had subjected her to a degrading search on the side of the road in full view of traffic, claiming she matched the description of a suspect. The search found nothing. Keisha filed a complaint that was dismissed. She told reporters about the experience with tears in her eyes. "She made me feel like I was nothing, like I was less than human. I was humiliated, violated, and then the department told me my complaint was unfounded." How many others are out there who didn't come forward because they knew no one would listen? More victims emerged. A college student, a delivery driver, a father pulled over while taking his kids to school, all black, all describing similar experiences with Jennifer: aggressive stops, racist comments, searches without cause. Some had filed complaints that went nowhere. Others had been too afraid of retaliation. The mounting testimony painted a portrait that Jennifer barely recognized but couldn't deny. The Millbrook County Police Department, already under DOJ investigation, faced renewed scrutiny. The police union initially defended Jennifer issued statements about due process and presumption of innocence. But as the evidence mounted, as the video went viral online, as protests began outside the station, the union quietly withdrew support. Jennifer became radioactive. Former colleagues crossed the street to avoid her. Friends stopped calling. Her parents, retired in Florida, told her not to visit until this blew over. Mark moved into the guest bedroom and stopped wearing his wedding ring. Her attorney, a public defender named Susan Morales, tried to negotiate a plea. The prosecutor offered a deal. Plead guilty to reduced charges, simple assault, and filing a false report. 3 years probation, community service, surrender of police certification, permanently public apology. No prison time. Jennifer refused. I won't say I'm guilty of racism. I won't apologize for doing my job. I made a mistake, fine, but I'm not a racist. Morales looked at her with exhausted patience. The video shows you using racial slurs. Multiple victims are describing a pattern. The evidence is overwhelming. If you go to trial, you will lose. And the sentence will be much worse. I want a trial. I want to tell my side. There is no your side anymore. There's the evidence. And the evidence says you targeted people based on race, abused your authority, and lied about it. Take the deal. Jennifer refused again. The trial date was set for 6 weeks later. Marcus used the momentum to push through reforms that had been stalled for months. The incident became a catalyst. The city council, facing national attention and public pressure, approved measures they'd resisted for years. Mandatory body cameras for all officers, no exceptions, with immediate disciplinary action for disabled equipment. Revised use of force policies emphasizing de-escalation. Community oversight board with subpoena power and authority to investigate complaints. Independent review of all use of force incidents. Mandatory implicit bias training for all officers, designed and delivered by community members and academic experts. Ban on pretextual stops in certain circumstances. Requirement for officers to provide written documentation of consent for searches. Public database of police complaints and disciplinary actions. The reforms were named the Marcus Bennett Police Accountability Act. At the signing ceremony, Marcus stood beside the mayor and spoke about systemic change. This isn't about one officer. This is about a culture that allowed one officer's misconduct to continue unchecked for 14 years. We change that culture, or we betray every person we've sworn to serve. Jennifer watched the ceremony on the news from her living room alone. Mark was at work. The kids were at school, though Emma had stopped speaking to her entirely, and Tyler only communicated in monosyllables. Her house felt like a tomb. 3 days before the trial, Jennifer's daughter, Emma, knocked on her bedroom door. It was the first time they'd really spoken in weeks. "Mom, can I come in?" "Of course, honey." Emma sat on the edge of the bed, her face conflicted. "I need to tell you something. And you're going to be really mad." Jennifer's stomach dropped. "What is it?" Deputy Superintendent Bennett contacted me. Through his attorney. He wanted to know if I had any information about your conduct. About things you said at home. Emma, you didn't? I gave them text messages. From 2 years ago. Jennifer felt the blood drain from her face. What messages? Remember when you pulled over that guy, the one with the BMW, and you came home and made jokes about it at dinner, about how you put him in his place, about how people like him needed to learn respect? I texted my friend about it. About how uncomfortable it made me. How I thought you were being racist, but I didn't know what to do. Jennifer stared at her daughter. You gave them evidence against me. You're my mother and I love you. But what you did was wrong, and I can't protect you from the consequences of your own actions. Emma stood, tears streaming down her face. I hope you get help, Mom. I really do. Because the person you've become isn't someone I recognize anymore. She left, and Jennifer sat alone in her bedroom, finally understanding that even her own family saw her as the villain in this story. The trial lasted 8 days. The prosecution presented overwhelming evidence. Video from Helen Rodriguez showing the assault. Audio from Marcus's dash cam capturing Jennifer's racist comments. Medical documentation of Marcus's injuries. Testimony from Helen Rodriguez, who described what she witnessed with the moral authority of someone who'd spent 30 years on the federal bench. Testimony from Marcus, calm and factual and devastating. Thompson testified reluctantly, his discomfort visible, describing how Jennifer convinced him to falsify his report. The other victims testified: James Crawford, Keisha Williams, 6 others who'd experienced Jennifer's abuse over 14 years, each one describing a pattern so consistent it couldn't be coincidental. Jennifer's attorney tried to argue she'd acted in fear that split-second decisions in dangerous situations shouldn't be judged in hindsight, but the video made that defense impossible. There was no danger in that parking lot. Just a black man complying with commands and a white officer attacking him. The text messages from Emma sealed it. Jennifer joking about putting black people in their place. Jennifer using slurs casually at home. Jennifer bragging about stops that humiliated people. The messages created a window into Jennifer's mindset that no defense could overcome. Jennifer testified in her own defense against her attorney's advice. She tried to explain about the promotion she'd been denied, about the stress of the job, about how Marcus's calm demeanor had made her feel disrespected. It came out sounding like exactly what it was: excuses. The prosecutor's cross-examination was surgical. So you assaulted Deputy Superintendent Bennett because you felt disrespected. That's not what I said. You said his calm demeanor made you feel disrespected. That sounds like you were offended that a black man wasn't intimidated by your authority. Objection overruled. Answer the question, Officer Walsh. I felt that he wasn't taking the situation seriously. The situation where you were illegally searching him without cause. Where you were making racist comments, that situation I was doing my job. Your job involves assaulting compliant citizens. That's not what happened. We have video of exactly what happened. The video shows you striking an unarmed man who had his hands raised. A man who is now your supervisor. A man who dedicated his career to stopping officers like you. Do you have any remorse for your actions? I regret that the situation escalated. Do you regret hitting him? I regret that force became necessary. Force wasn't necessary. You chose violence. You chose to target Mr. Bennett because of his race. You chose to lie about it. And you chose to maintain those lies even when confronted with irrefutable evidence. That's not a mistake. That's a pattern of misconduct and racism. Objection sustained. Move on, counselor. The prosecutor did move on, but the damage was done. Jennifer left the stand knowing she'd failed, knowing the jury saw through every deflection. The jury deliberated for 2 hours and 47 minutes. Guilty on all counts. Assault in the second degree. Filing a false police report. Civil rights violations under federal statute. Judge Okonkwo scheduled sentencing for 2 weeks later. Jennifer sat in the courtroom numb as the judge denied her request for bail pending sentencing. You've shown no remorse. You've continued to maintain false statements. You represent a danger to the community you swore to protect. Remand to custody. Jennifer was handcuffed in the courtroom and led out through a side door. She saw Mark in the gallery, his face unreadable. She saw Emma, tears streaming down her face. She saw Marcus, his expression neutral, neither triumphant nor sympathetic, just watching justice occur. Sentencing came on a cold morning in late October. Jennifer stood before Judge Okonkwo and was given one final chance to speak. I want to say that I dedicated my life to public service. I tried to keep my community safe. I made mistakes, but I never intended to hurt anyone. Judge Okonkwo looked at her with something like pity. Officer Walsh, the evidence shows you didn't make mistakes. You engaged in a systematic pattern of racial discrimination over more than a decade. You targeted vulnerable people, violated their rights, and then used your position to avoid accountability. When finally confronted with someone who had the authority to stop you, you responded with violence. And even now, you describe your actions as mistakes rather than choices. The court sentences you to 3 years in the Millbrook County Correctional Facility, followed by 5 years of supervised probation. Upon release, you are permanently barred from employment in law enforcement. You will participate in mandatory counseling for racial bias and anger management. You will perform community service in organizations that support victims of police misconduct. Jennifer swayed slightly, gripping the table. 3 years in the same jail where she used to bring suspects. The irony was crushing. She was processed and moved to the women's section of the county facility. The other inmates knew who she was immediately. Former cop. The worst thing you could be in jail. She was placed in protective custody for her own safety. 23 hours a day in a cell, 1 hour for recreation alone. The first month was hell. Jennifer spent her days replaying everything, looking for the moment where she could have made a different choice. But the truth was, there were 1,000 moments, 1,000 chances to be better. And she'd failed every single one. The prison required participation in rehabilitation programs. Jennifer was mandated to attend racial bias counseling, anger management, victim impact awareness. She resisted, at first sat in the group silent and resentful. But slowly, with nowhere to hide and nothing to distract her, the enormity of what she'd done began to penetrate. She read the victim impact statements properly for the first time. Really read them, not skimming for legal exposure, but absorbing the pain she'd caused. James Crawford describing how the planted evidence destroyed his reputation, cost him business, made him afraid to drive in certain neighborhoods. Keisha Williams explaining the lasting trauma of being violated and humiliated, how she still felt unsafe around police officers, how that single encounter changed her relationship with authority forever. The college student who dropped out because of the anxiety Jennifer's stop had triggered. The father whose children still had nightmares about watching their dad being handcuffed for no reason. Dozens of lives damaged, dozens of people who would never feel entirely safe again because of her actions. The anger and defensiveness that had sustained Jennifer began to crack. 6 months into her sentence, she wrote letters to her victims. Not expecting forgiveness, not trying to minimize what she'd done, just acknowledging their pain and taking responsibility. Most went unanswered, but Keisha Williams wrote back. 3 pages describing what Jennifer's assault and lies had cost her, the therapy, the sleepless nights, the fear, and then in the final paragraph, I don't forgive you. Maybe I never will. But I acknowledge that you're trying to understand what you did. That's more than you gave me during that traffic stop. That letter broke Jennifer in ways the conviction hadn't. She finally saw herself clearly. Not a dedicated officer doing her job. Not a victim of circumstance or politics. But someone who had used her power to harm people because of their skin color. Someone who had perpetuated racism because it made her feel powerful. Someone who had become exactly what she'd always claimed she wasn't. 14 months into her sentence, Jennifer received a letter from an organization called the Restorative Justice Initiative. They facilitated dialogues between offenders and victims when both parties were willing. Marcus Bennett had inquired about whether Jennifer would be interested in participating. Jennifer stared at the letter for 3 days before responding. Yes. The restorative justice session was scheduled for a Tuesday afternoon in a conference room at the county administrative building. Jennifer was transported there in handcuffs, wearing prison clothes, accompanied by 2 guards. She'd been incarcerated for 18 months and looked different, thinner. Gray streaks in her hair that hadn't been there before. Lines around her eyes from sleepless nights. The facilitator was a woman named Dr. Patricia Mwangi, a psychologist who specialized in racial reconciliation and restorative justice. She explained the process carefully, This isn't about forgiveness. It's about understanding. Mr. Bennett wants to understand who you are and why you did what you did. You have the opportunity to take accountability without defensiveness, to answer honestly. Can you do that? Jennifer nodded, her throat tight. I'll try. Marcus arrived 10 minutes later. He wore casual clothes, khakis, and a button-down shirt. His face had healed completely, no visible trace of the bruise Jennifer had left. He looked at her without anger or satisfaction, just curiosity. They sat across a table, Dr. Mwangi between them. Marcus, would you like to start? Marcus leaned forward slightly. Officer Walsh, I've investigated hundreds of cases of police misconduct in my career. I've seen officers who were afraid and made bad decisions, officers who were poorly trained and didn't know better. But when I reviewed your file, I saw something different, a pattern going back years. And I wanted to understand why. What made you target people who looked like me? Jennifer had prepared for this moment, but the words still came hard. I thought I was doing my job. I thought I was keeping people safe. But the truth is, I was angry. I felt like I'd worked hard my whole life and never got what I deserved. And when I saw people, black people, who seemed successful or confident, or like they had things I wanted, it made me angry. It made me feel like they didn't deserve what they had. Like they must have cheated somehow or gotten special treatment. So I used my badge to put them in their place, to remind them that I had power over them. The words hung in the air. Marcus absorbed them without reaction. Do you know why I became a police officer? No, sir. My father was beaten by police during a civil rights march in 1963. He was 17 years old, peacefully protesting for the right to vote. 3 officers attacked him with batons, broke his ribs, fractured his skull. He survived, but he was never the same. Brain damage from the beating meant he couldn't work most of his life. My mother raised 5 kids while taking care of a disabled husband. We grew up poor because police officers decided my father didn't deserve dignity. Marcus's voice remained steady, but Jennifer saw the emotion beneath it. I became a cop because I wanted to prove that policing could be different, that the badge could mean protection instead of oppression, that officers could serve all communities equally. I spent 28 years trying to reform law enforcement from the inside. And then you punched me in the face for driving while black. Jennifer felt tears she'd been holding back for 18 months finally break free. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what I did to you and everyone else. I can't undo it. I can't give back the years I took or heal the trauma I caused. But I want you to know that I see it now. I see what I was. And I'm trying to become someone different. Marcus nodded slowly. What are you going to do with that understanding? When you get out, what happens then? I don't know yet. I know I'll never be a police officer again. I don't deserve that. But maybe I can do something that matters. Maybe I can help other officers avoid becoming what I was. The session lasted 3 hours. They talked about Jennifer's childhood, her father's resentment of affirmative action policies that he blamed for his job loss, the casual racism she'd absorbed and never questioned. They talked about Marcus's career, the officers he'd removed from duty, the ones he'd helped rehabilitate. They talked about the victims, the lives damaged, the communities traumatized. At the end, Dr. Mwangi asked if either wanted to say anything final. Marcus looked at Jennifer directly. I don't forgive you. That's not my role, and it's not something you've earned yet. But I acknowledge that you're doing the work. That's more than most officers in your position ever do. Keep doing it. Not for me, but for the people you'll encounter in the future. Jennifer nodded, unable to speak. The session ended and Jennifer was returned to the correctional facility. But something had shifted. She'd faced the person she'd harmed most directly and survived it. She'd taken accountability without excuses. It was the hardest thing she'd ever done and the most important. She continued the restorative justice process with other victims. Not all of them wanted to participate, but some did. James Crawford agreed to a session 3 months later. It was brutal. He described in detail how the planted evidence had destroyed his business reputation, cost him contracts, made him a suspect in his own community. Jennifer listened without defending herself, absorbing the pain she'd caused. Keisha Williams participated in a written exchange, not ready for face-to-face dialogue, but willing to communicate. Her letters were raw and honest, describing the lasting impact of being violated by someone in authority. Jennifer responded to each one, never asking for forgiveness, just acknowledging the harm. 2 years into her sentence, Jennifer was transferred to a work release program. She spent her days working at a nonprofit that helped formerly incarcerated people reintegrate into society. The irony wasn't lost on her. She was now on the other side, experiencing the stigma and barriers that people she'd arrested faced. It was humbling. The nonprofit director, a Black woman named Angela Harris, who'd spent 5 years in prison for a nonviolent drug offense, became Jennifer's mentor. Angela had transformed her life. After release, earned a degree in social work, dedicated herself to helping others. One afternoon, Angela called Jennifer into her office. "I got a call from the State Police Academy. They're updating their training curriculum, adding a section on implicit bias and abuse of authority. They want someone who's lived it to speak to cadets. Someone who can talk honestly about how officers become what you became. They asked if you'd be interested." Jennifer stared at her. "They want me to speak about my crimes, about how you recognized them, took accountability, and changed. Not everyone gets that chance. Most officers in your position double down, stay defensive forever. You did something different. It won't undo the harm you caused, but it might prevent future harm." Jennifer accepted. Her first speaking engagement was at the State Police Academy 6 months before her release. Facing a room of cadets, she told her story without minimizing or excusing, described the racism that had driven her actions, the victims she'd harmed, the lies she'd told, the moment she'd assaulted Marcus Bennett, and the consequences that followed. The cadets listened in silence. During the question period, a young Black cadet raised his hand. "What do you want us to take away from this?" Jennifer considered carefully. That the badge gives you power over people's lives. How you use that power matters more than anything else, and that racism isn't just slurs and cross-burnings. It's the assumptions you make, the people you see as threats, the way you treat someone based on skin color. I destroyed lives because I never examined my own biases. Don't make my mistake. She gave that talk a dozen times over the next year. Each time it got a little easier to say and a little harder to live with. Because telling the truth meant facing it repeatedly, and the truth was ugly. Jennifer was released from the Millbrook County Correctional Facility on a Tuesday morning in April, 2 years and 3 months after her sentencing. She'd earned good behavior credits, participated fully in every rehabilitation program, completed her restorative justice dialogues. She walked out into spring sunshine carrying a box of belongings and wearing donated clothes. Mark was not there to pick her up. They'd finalized their divorce a year earlier. He'd been civil, but clear he couldn't reconcile the person he'd married with the person she'd become. He'd moved with Emma and Tyler to another state, making a fresh start. Jennifer understood. Her children's relationship with her was complicated. Tyler had visited a few times, awkward conversations through plexiglass. He was 17 now, graduating high school, soon planning to study engineering. He was polite but distant, still processing having a mother who was a convicted felon. Emma hadn't visited at all, but 6 months ago she'd sent a letter. It wasn't warm, but it wasn't completely closed off either. She wrote about starting college, studying criminal justice reform, wanting to fix the system that had allowed her mother to abuse her power for so long. "I'm doing this because of you," she wrote. "Not to make you proud, but because someone needs to ensure that what you did doesn't keep happening. Maybe someday we can talk. But not yet. Jennifer had cried reading that letter. It was more than she deserved. Angela Harris picked Jennifer up from the facility and drove her to a halfway house on the east side of Millbrook. Small rooms shared bathrooms, strict rules about curfews and check-ins, but it was a start. Jennifer got a job at Angela's nonprofit helping formerly incarcerated people navigate re-entry. The work was humbling and necessary. She understood now what people she'd arrested had faced. The barriers, the stigma, the difficulty of rebuilding. She lived quietly, frugally, dedicating herself to repair where possible. The speaking engagements continued. Police academies, community groups, college criminal justice classes. Jennifer became a living cautionary tale, someone who'd hit rock bottom and was climbing back up not to redemption, but to usefulness. She didn't ask for forgiveness from audiences. She asked for their attention and their willingness to learn from her failures. 5 years after the incident on Route 42, Millbrook County held a community event celebrating police reforms. The Marcus Bennett Police Accountability Act had transformed the department. Complaints of excessive force had dropped by 63%. Community trust in police measured by annual surveys had improved significantly. Use of force incidents involving people of color had decreased sharply. The reforms were working. Jennifer attended the event not as a guest, but as a volunteer arriving early to help set up chairs and tables. She wore plain clothes, no badge, no authority, just someone helping. Most people at the event didn't recognize her. Those who did gave her a wide berth. Marcus was the keynote speaker. Jennifer watched from the back of the room as he talked about systemic change, about how one incident had catalyzed reforms that should have happened decades earlier, about the ongoing work of building trust between police and communities. When the formal program ended, people mingled. Jennifer stayed in the back, preparing to leave quietly. But Marcus spotted her. He walked over and people moved aside, sensing something significant. Officer Walsh? Mr. Bennett? They hadn't spoken since the restorative justice session 3 years earlier. Marcus looked at her carefully. I heard you've been speaking at academies. Trying to do something useful with my experience? That's good. The work matters. They stood in awkward silence for a moment. Then Marcus spoke again. I want you to know something. What you did to me, the assault and the lies, it was personal. It hurt. But it also gave me the leverage I needed to push through reforms that had been blocked for years. Your misconduct became the catalyst for change. That doesn't excuse what you did, but it means something good came from something terrible. Jennifer felt tears threatening but held them back. I wish I could undo it. I wish I'd been better from the start. We can't undo the past. We can only try to do better going forward. Are you doing better every day? It's hard. But I'm trying. Marcus nodded. That's all any of us can do. He extended his hand. Jennifer stared at it for a moment, then shook it. His grip was firm, professional, neither friendly nor hostile. Just acknowledgement. As Marcus walked away, a young officer approached Jennifer. He was black mid-20s wearing his uniform with visible pride. Officer Walsh Jennifer tensed, expecting anger or confrontation. Yes, I'm Officer Thompson Rodriguez, Mike Thompson's nephew. I joined the force 2 years ago because of the reforms. Because they made it safe for someone like me to be a cop. Jennifer blinked in surprise. We study your case at the academy. It's part of the mandatory training on excessive force and racial bias. And I wanted to say thank you. Jennifer couldn't have been more stunned. Thank me for being willing to be the cautionary tale. For speaking honestly about what you did wrong. A lot of officers would have just served their time and disappeared. But you stood up and said, I did this terrible thing and here's why you shouldn't. That takes courage, and it matters. Because of the investigation into your conduct, because of the reforms that followed, I felt safe enough to become an officer. My Uncle Mike tells me about the department before the changes. I wouldn't have joined that department. But this one with accountability and oversight and training, this one I can be proud of. Officer Rodriguez shook her hand and walked away, leaving Jennifer standing in the community center, processing what had just happened. Her downfall, her crimes, her public humiliation had inadvertently become the catalyst that made policing better, not because of her intentions, but despite them. She walked out of the community center into the warm evening. The sun was setting over Millbrook, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple. Jennifer had lost everything: her career, her marriage, her reputation, years of her life to incarceration. But she'd gained something too: understanding, accountability, a chance to help prevent others from becoming what she'd been. She would never be a police officer again, and she accepted that. She would spend the rest of her life making amends for the harm she'd caused, knowing it would never be enough but doing it anyway. The racist cop who'd assaulted her future boss had become something she'd never expected, a cautionary tale that actually changed the system. Justice had taken an unexpected form, not just punishment, but transformation. Jennifer walked to the bus stop, heading back to the halfway house, to her small room and her quiet life and her ongoing work of repair. She'd hit rock bottom and was climbing back up, not to where she'd been, but to something different, something better, something honest. And that was more than she dared hope for on that terrible afternoon on Route 42, when she'd made a choice that cost her everything and paradoxically gave the community something they'd needed for decades: the undeniable proof that change was necessary and the momentum to finally achieve it. What do you think about police accountability and reform? Have you, or someone you know, experienced situations where officers abused their authority? How do we balance supporting good police officers while holding bad ones accountable? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If this story made you think differently about policing and justice, please like this video and subscribe to our channel for more stories that matter. Share this with someone who needs to hear it, because these conversations are how we create change together. Thank you for listening to this difficult but important story. May we all have the courage to face our failures, take accountability for our actions, and work toward a more just world for everyone.